And we're back. Welcome to Fireside Giants, a featured podcast by Empire Sports Media. I'm your host, Alexander Wilson, and my co-hosts, Anthony Rivardo and Mike Iarapino. Give us a follow on Twitter if you haven't already, Alex Wilson ESM, Anthony_Rivardo, and Mike_NYY. Also, smash that subscribe button on YouTube and leave a review on iTunes. Just do it because we need it. We have a lot more coming and tons of content to push out for you fine people. And I'm really excited to get into today's episode after the NFL Combine. We have plenty of information, mailbag questions, the name of my cat, so much more to talk about. But today I want to just start with Evan Engram and kind of what has happened this past week with his, foot surgery and knowing that he's been in a boot for 3 months and, he's still dealing with that, which is a little concerning to me. Just a few things to get out of the way before we dive into it. His stats have declined, pretty consistently over the last 3 years. The Giants have a big decision to make this offseason with him. They can either pick up his fifth-year option, which is about $5.3 million, and that's an option that everyone's kind of talking about. They could trade him this offseason, or they could extend him, pick up the fifth year and then trade him at the deadline next season, which I find to be an ideal scenario. But let's start with you, Mike. What do you think about Evan Engram? Do you think they should keep him, trade him? What's up?
So for $5.3 million, I feel it's probably worth to keep him, but got to keep in mind, I would not mind trading him either. So he will be on the roster next year. I'm assuming this is for fifth year, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so fifth year, we're talking 2 years down the line now. So we got to hope he has a great year next year. And, he's still in the boot, so we have no idea what his health status is right now. But if he comes back next year, plays at least 12 games, maybe, hopefully, and then maybe another team sees the potential and says, oh, we can, really make something out of this guy. Then maybe we trade him for hopefully a high third-round pick, low second, maybe if we get lucky, something like that. But I really don't see him having a long-term future here on the Giants, unfortunately.
I kind of disagree. I think Evan Engram is just a super, super talented player, and he can really be an X factor in an offense when he's healthy. And I don't think you give up on a guy like that. I know he's had so many injury problems, and he's really struggled to stay healthy and stay on the field. But when he's on the field, he makes such a big difference. Obviously, his rookie season, when he was the main target, he completely tore it up, had over 700 yards, and was making highlight plays week after week. And then obviously he started dealing with injuries the next 2 seasons and was really had his role in the offense minimized. But I think that if the Giants can't figure out a way to make him a focal point, make him an X factor in the offense, then another team will. And then I think you do shop him, you field some trade offers and see what you can get. But to me, it would take a lot to give up Evan Engram. I think really highly of his talents.
Yeah, no, I see what you guys are saying. And, knowing that he missed almost an entire season over the last 2 years is pretty concerning to me. And his biggest knock on him in his first year, his rookie season, was his catch rate, 55.7% catch rate. Really bad. It went up to 70.3% in 2018, but then dropped again to 64.7% in 2019. Now I'm looking at Kaden Smith here, who I'm very high on, and I really like what he showed in his first year. He had a 73.8% catch rate as an undrafted free agent last year. So that's something to be aware of. Kaden Smith is the real deal. I think, he just has to develop his blocking, get a little bit bigger, iron out those fundamentals. I think Joe Judge is going to help him a ton with that. He did fumble twice. So there's a lot to, look at with Smith. There's a long way to go with him. I think they need to have a veteran, which is why keeping Engram this season makes sense. Now, in my head, I look at the scenario where the Giants may not be in playoff contention. And this is a great opportunity for them to sell high on Engram because during the Super Bowl last year, San Francisco and the Chiefs both had elite tight ends. So there has to be a correlation with having amazing tight ends and being in the Super Bowl. Evan Engram is capable of being a top option, especially in the passing game. So selling high on him, a high third-round pick or even a mid-third-round pick is reasonable to ask, especially if a team is looking for that weapon. It's a great security blanket for quarterbacks. So I think Ingram's a really good option here. But what do you guys think about Kaden Smith? Do you think he can be the future, or should the Giants and Dave Gettleman be looking to draft or sign somebody?
Well, for Kaden Smith, I'm not sold entirely because we only saw him start for a quarter of the season basically, but did have some really nice moments. When he did start, he was definitely fine. He was playing above what I thought he would be. So I'm not, obviously I'd rather have Evan Engram next to him next year. I wouldn't want to go into next year with him being the guy, but if he is and we get a good trade offer for Engram, then I guess I can live with it. But you have to kind of put it out there this might bust. This might not exactly work because this is a guy that we basically signed off the street last year. And although he looked great and probably will improve because he's still young, I'm not exactly sold yet. But if he is used the right way and maybe he turns into the next Jason Witten inside of a Jason Garrett offense, that would be fantastic. And, I'm not going to just completely quit on the guy because he does have a lot of talent, and I think he will get better, as I said.
Right. Anthony, what do you think?
I mean, I think that Kaden Smith would be a really, really good number 2 tight end. I don't really think that he's somebody that you want to rely on and make the starter. And you mentioned the 2 elite tight ends that we saw in the Super Bowl this year. There's something specific that both of them do very well, and that's they have excellent run blocking abilities. And Evan Engram doesn't have that, so he's not as valuable as them.
Yep.
But Kaden Smith does have above average run blocking abilities, which definitely encourages me and says maybe there is something here for the future. But I don't think that he's really an explosive receiving threat. So I think at the best, he's going to be a solid number 2 tight end. And then you could keep Evan Engram in the passing downs. But when you're running the ball, you put Kaden Smith out there, and he should make a difference.
Right. And what do you guys think about Austin Hooper? I've been, looking at him recently. He is a free agent. He missed 3 games last year. He's been relatively healthy. I mean, he's played in all 16 games. Between 2017, 2018, 13 last season. He's a really good receiving threat, really good hands, and a huge red zone target. And he's good in the run blocking schemes. So he looks like a pretty good option as long as he's not taking in a ton of money in free agency. If they want to trade Engram, he's a really good guy to have, especially in those 12 personnel sets with 2 tight ends. Lining him up with Engram, I love that idea. I love the idea of Joe Judge and Jason Garrett utilizing 2 tight ends like they did in Dallas, or specifically with Garrett in Dallas, with Blake Jarwin and Jason Witten. They were unstoppable at times. Such good red zone schemes, and I think utilizing 2 tight ends can be very beneficial, especially when you have a quarterback like Jones that likes to make quick reads, and the play action will be really, really good with a guy like Engram in the passing game. That's where he thrives. Daniel Jones thrives in play action just like Eli Manning did. And having a really good wide receiver and a really good tight end, a pass-catching tight end is essential. But having 2 guys that can catch passes and block, that's a dream to me. But what do you guys think about Hooper? Should they be looking at him?
I mean, he is 25 years old. He's been getting better every year receiving-wise. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know what he is as a blocker. I haven't looked into that too much, but he can't be too bad. He must be an average blocker at best. So, honestly, I mean, I feel he might cost a bit too much for my liking because he's going to hit the open market. I think the Falcons already admitted they're not bringing him back next year. And when the best tight end, right? No, not the best in the league, but the best tight end on the market hits the market, he's going to get paid a lot more than he should make probably. I mean, Austin Hooper's probably a guy who should make around $8 million per year, but due to
2 Pro Bowls too.
Yeah. So I mean, due to free agency and inflating his numbers, or the salary he's going to make, he's probably going to make around like $12 million maybe, or something crazy like that. I personally would not want that. I mean, if I would take him on a good contract, of course. I would take him on this team because he's probably our best tight end if we get him here. But unfortunately, I think the contract would be too long, and I think it would cost too much money in the end.
Right. What do you think, Ant?
I mean, I know Austin Hooper completely dominated in fantasy football this year, so he must be pretty good. I mean, I know he had a lot of games where he was the leading tight end in receiving yards week after week. And, I mean, he put up 787 yards as a tight end this year. That's really strong in only 13 games, and he only started 10 of those. So, I mean, like, really, really good receiving tight end. Like Mike, I don't really know much about his blocking abilities, but I know he's super talented. So if they do move on from Evan Engram, if they trade him and get a pick or 2 in return, then yeah, I think you would consider. We do have like close to $80 million in cap space.
Yep.
So I definitely think you want to at least inquire on Austin Hooper and see what his price is. But if it's through the roof, then I don't know if it's completely necessary if he isn't a great blocker, because we do have a lot of offensive weapons already. We still have Saquon. We've got Daniel Jones obviously can run a bit too, and he's obviously a good passer. And we've also got Sterling Shepard. Darius Slayton seems like an emerging star. And then
legit.
Yeah, Golden Tate, he should still be on the roster come training camp. So, I don't think necessarily Austin Hooper's a necessity, but if you can get him on a good deal, I don't see why not.
Right. I mean, something to think about for the Giants and Dave Gettleman, if you're listening, just think about Hooper. He's a really good tight end. You really never know. With a guy like Hooper, he's shown he can be a Pro Bowl quality player. And that's really what the Giants need, are players that can, make a difference week in and week out. On the run.
Can I say this about Hooper though? I mean, the one thing I want to put in here is that one thing. I think his stats might be deceiving because the Falcons last year, if I remember correctly, could not run the ball for anything. Whether it was like whoever the running back was. Their offensive line was horrible last year. So I
Trash.
think Matt Ryan was up there, probably top 5, maybe top 3 in pass attempts. So I mean, that might have inflated the stats a bit much. I don't know the target numbers off the top of my head, but you have to take that into consideration as well.
That's fair. That's fair. I'll take it. But as for the next segment, I really want to dive into the NFL Combine, specifically Isaiah Simmons and as as far as we know, Gettleman's favorite, Derrick Brown. As we all can probably assume, Derrick Brown is not someone that we want on the Giants, but I'm going to have Mike talk about him to start and, a little bit about, what is so attractive about him. And did he look good in the Combine? I'm imagining this won't be very good.
Yeah, I mean, look, I heard his combine was not great. I didn't watch the defensive tackles at the combine, unfortunately, but his 3-cone, whatever it was not good apparently. But I mean, Derrick Brown, the player, I mean, he did get better as a pass rusher last year in 2019, even 2018. I think he had 4.5 sacks, which was his most in college. But honestly, when I watched a lot of guys defensive tackle last year, Quentin Williams, Ed Oliver. I like those guys more than Derrick Brown. I feel like Derrick Brown's kind of put on a pedestal in this draft because he's like the only dominant defensive tackle. And my hot take is I like Javon Kinlaw even more than him, honestly. I would not be surprised if he had a better NFL career. I know Derrick Brown gets all the hype. I mean, I don't know if it's Auburn or whatever, but still, I mean, He's very strong. He'll be great at stopping the run. He'll probably be a really good player for a decade, just like I said about Dexter Lawrence last year. But taking him at number 4 overall, I mean, I'm assuming that's what we're going to talk about here. That would be pretty crazy in my mind. If he wanted to trade back and maybe we were in like the mid-teens or something like that, and he's still there, then fine. But like it's not a team need right now. I feel they can do better. They have more positions they need than defensive tackle and Derrick Brown.
Right. And personally, I don't fucking like Derrick Brown. I think if Dave Gettleman was to dive into him, it wouldn't make much sense to me. Like, because think about this. Last year, they invested a first-round pick, 17th overall, in Dexter Lawrence, right? So you have Dexter Lawrence already supplanted for the future on the defensive front. Now we have Dalvin Tomlinson, who they should absolutely extend after a dominant 2019. The guy looked fantastic against the run. He actually got after the passer a little bit. He's a guy that you want to be around. Don't make the same mistake that they did with Linval Joseph and those other big guys that had ended up having good careers. And then they have Leonard Williams, which is kind of interesting to me. Why would there be rumors about the Giants and Dave Gettleman liking Derrick Brown if they want to re-sign Leonard Williams? Right? It doesn't make any sense to me. What's the point of drafting Derrick Brown if you're going to have Leonard Williams and sign him? Which is why this is the conflict in my head that's going on. I think it's a load of shit, personally. I think it was Matt Lombardo who said it. Who said it?
Yeah, it was Lombardo who put it.
All right, so we already know it's a piece of shit. Don't believe that. But realistically, like, it doesn't make any logical sense for the Giants to go after Derrick Brown. Of course, Dave Gettleman's done crazy stuff in the past, and we can't always believe what we hear via social media. And I think that they will not take that route, even trading back. Like, if they trade back 1 or 2 slots, Isaiah Simmons might be there, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Yeah. But, what do you think about Derrick Brown? Do you think it's even worth talking about, or do you think we just want to dive right into Simmons?
I definitely think it's worth talking about because with Dave Gettleman and his interior defensive lineman fetish that he has, it's like a serious possibility that we end up drafting him. And I just think it's so ridiculous. I mean, if you think about what we've invested into this defensive line already, if we invested another first-round pick, I mean, we invested a first-round pick in Dexter Lawrence last year and also a 7th-round pick in Chris Slayton, who hasn't touched the field. And then we also invested a 3rd-round pick in 2018 into B.J. Hill. Yep. In 2017, we invested a 2nd-round pick into Dalvin Tomlinson. When are we going to stop investing into the defensive line? I mean, I think it's right where it should be. I think it was right. I thought it was right where it should be before we even traded for Leonard Williams, who cost us this year's 3rd-round pick.
Yep.
So you just keep investing and investing, and if you really are going to throw in another 1st-round pick onto that defensive line, I mean, if it's 3-4 defense, you've only got 3 of those positions to fill, and we've already filled 4 of them, I think. So I don't think we need to fill all 5. It's ridiculous, and I think we're much better off staying put at number 4 and taking somebody like Isaiah Simmons. Even Jeffrey Okudah, I think that's a more valuable position than defensive line because really Derrick Brown, he might be an elite run defender, but it's a passing league, and he's not going to get after the quarterback like that.
Absolutely. And this hysteria that revolved around Leonard Williams to begin with is kind of interesting. When they first drafted him, they gave up the 3rd-round pick, and I think it was a 4th-round pick or a 5th-round pick next year.
4th, I think, right?
It was a 4th and a 3rd-round pick, essentially, right? Their minds were blown, and including mine. At first I was like, okay, Leonard Williams, like, he has a good name. I've heard about him. He's good against the run, and everyone was blown away. But now people are kind of settling in on him. If you notice, like, a lot of people's opinion on him has changed dramatically. So, people were at first like, okay, like we don't like this. We gave up way too much draft capital for a rental, especially going into free agency. We could have just signed him anyway. And now people are like, okay, well, now we have security over him. Like we have the first attempt at re-signing him. He made a difference in the run game, a big one. And we know Joe Judge and Dave Gettleman are big run-stopping fans. They're smash-mouth football guys. I love that about them. At the same time, they can kind of leave them in the dark, though, especially with futuristic and statistical probabilities. So that's something to consider. And I'm using big words, Anthony. Don't laugh at me. But realistically, like we're looking at a situation where, Derrick Brown doesn't really fit the mold for the Giants right now. And I think that Isaiah Simmons makes he's a better option for them, essentially.
Makes a lot more sense. Yeah.
It makes a lot more sense. And I want Anthony to talk about his combine numbers and a little bit about what he would bring to the Giants, his diversity, and what he wants to do in the NFL.
Yeah, well, 4.39 second 40-yard dash, which is the second fastest ever by a linebacker, only behind Shaquem Griffin. Anyway, 6'3", 5'8". He's taller than DK Metcalf, 238 pounds. He's heavier than Roquan Smith. He ran that 4.39 40-yard dash, which is faster than Devin Hester, 39-inch vertical jump, which is higher than Julio Jones, and 11-foot broad jump, which is more explosive than Alvin Kamara. So obviously, the dude is just a freaky athlete. He can do it all. And when you watch him play, it shows up. You can see that 4.39 second 40-yard dash show up in the game tape. He goes out there and he plays deep safety. He gets from one side of the field to the other in 4.39 seconds. He runs that 40-yard dash instantly. And you could see it on the field. You could see it. I mean, his man coverage ability is honestly unbelievable from a linebacker. He really is a safety in a linebacker's body and not a linebacker in a safety's body like someone like Jabril Peppers. I mean, Peppers is like what everybody wanted. Simmons is what everybody wanted Peppers to be coming out of college. And except he's actually good. Simmons is a beast, man. Like, there's no way this guy's going to bust to me. I think he's just so versatile. He played over 100 snaps at 5 different positions in 2019. And he played all of them at an elite level. If you put him on the Giants defense, especially with Joe Judge, he's preached versatility and how positionless players are going to be all over the defense. I mean, Isaiah Simmons is exactly what Joe Judge wants, and he would completely change our defense, and he'd be like an elite player for 10 years at least.
Yeah, I think he'll be I think the bust rate very low for him. I think he'll be fine wherever he goes. I mean, sometimes in the draft it depends what teams these guys go, especially for quarterbacks and whatnot. But like a guy like Isaiah Simmons can go to the worst team in the league. I don't know who, but the worst team in the league, basically the Bengals. He can go to the Bengals and be completely fine there, probably go to a lot of Pro Bowls and whatnot. He's so versatile, and I think just a safe pick, honestly. There's a lot of safe picks, though. I mean, the top 3 offensive linemen in this draft are safe picks, and then you have Simmons, who's a safe pick. I think Okuda's somewhat safe. I mean, cornerbacks are kind of tricky sometimes, but I think, compared to those guys, he's not as safe, but still a pretty safe pick. But, yeah, I think Simmons at number 4, I mean, I could definitely live with that. I'd probably be very excited about it, honestly.
Yeah, no, I think Simmons is one of the best options for the Giants, especially if they're going to stay put at number 4. Like, as you said, he's a safe as pick you could probably get, aside from Chase Young. And the Giants don't need a quarterback. They need a defensive playmaker. And with a guy like Simmons, what this is what enamors me about Simmons the most. This guy can cover tight ends. And that's what we need. We need a freaking linebacker that can cover tight ends. I'm tired of Jason Witten at 55 years old with 2 legs that are broken in half, scoring touchdowns against Jabril Peppers, who's like can do backflips around him, over him. Like, that's blowing my mind. Like how are our linebackers getting blown up by Jason Witten, who's like can't even get a job with CBS commentating. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, this is what Simmons brings to the table, his diversity, his ability to rush the passer. I just saw a quote before saying that he actually wants to be able to rush the passer on 3rd downs. He's as fast and strong enough to be able to do it too. You know what I mean? And like, that's you don't see that very often in a linebacker, to be able to rush the passer, cover tight ends at an elite level. He could play slot. He could play safety, strong safety. If Jabril Peppers went down again, he could fill that slot. No problem. Like, you don't have a guy like that come across your table, a guy that's already a utility player. They're trying to mold Julian Love right now into a utility player. And they're going to get a guy like Simmons who can already do it all. And he's 20 years old. I'm 23. I feel pretty ginger and spry. He's 20 years old. You know what I mean? Like, he's a guy that will be an elite player in the NFL for the next 10 years. And the Giants will have him. And that's why I'm so excited about him as an option for the Giants, especially if they can trade back 1 or 2 slots and still land him and acquire more draft capital. Like, that's a dream scenario. If Dave Gettleman can pull that off, oh my goodness, I don't even know what I'll do.
I mean, the Giants have
think about
never had a linebacker like him, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember a linebacker like Isaiah Simmons in my life for this team, at least. You know,
I don't think any team has ever had a linebacker like
Besides
Isaiah
Darius
Simmons,
Leonard.
man.
Besides
I think
Darius
he's
Leonard.
one of a kind.
I mean, like I loved Miles Jack out of UCLA a few years ago. I wanted him over Eli Apple, but somehow slipped to the second round. But yeah, I mean, Miles Jack was probably the closest thing that I've watched and I wanted for the Giants. But now we're here with Isaiah Simmons a few years later, and he's definitely a better prospect than Jack is. I mean, he's got a different body type in a way, but still probably going to be a better player. So, look, I mean, you guys know I want the offensive lineman, the left tackle first, fourth overall. But if they want Isaiah Simmons and they somehow address that, left tackle spot a different way, then that's fine with me. I can live with Simmons because he's probably going to be a star one day.
Absolutely. I mean, if he isn't already a star, like going into the NFL, he could be that guy. Like Darius Leonard, for the Colts, is a similar player in my opinion. He can rush the passer, playing coverage, like is a second round pick. I mean, I wish the Giants would have taken him. Oh my goodness. In hindsight 50-50, but at the same time, Simmons is potentially, he reminds me of like a Minka Fitzpatrick with like better like linebacker ability. Just his versatility. He's nowhere. He's not even close to Minka Fitzpatrick in any sense, but his ability to play multiple positions and drop back in coverage is like just awesome to me. And like, I really grinds my gears.
In a good way.
In a very good, yes, the opposite of, what would be the opposite of grinding your gears?
I was thinking of Family Guy. Isn't that a bad thing? Grinds my gears, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I think it is a bad thing, so I take that back. I don't know what the alternative would be. Grind my gears.
I don't know. Greases my gears?
Greases my gears.
I like
that makes sense.
I don't really like that. I like that, but it sounds like wrong.
I don't know, man. Isaiah Simmons gets my gears really greasy.
I have to send you to way somewhere. Like something strange. Okay. Anyway, next segment, I want to dive into our mailbag questions via Twitter. Andrew on Twitter asked, what is the most important position to draft? Offensive tackle, edge rusher, linebacker, cornerback, wide receiver. When the Giants draft, if they have players with the same grade at the above positions, which one should they draft? So just to get this out of the way, if in my opinion, if you have players that have similar grades, obviously it comes down to need first and foremost. The Giants have needs at almost every position, so it's really hard to gauge which one they actually should take.
I know what you're going to say. I know where you're going with this, and I like it. Keep going.
So I'm saying the draft grade should come down to scheme fit and health history. I don't know if that's what you wanted me to say.
I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say trade back, because if you have similar grades on a few players, you can probably trade back a couple spots and still get someone you really like. But all right, I'm going to look at that. Yeah.
No, I mean, as long as I don't have like AIDS or something, like I think we should be good to go. But no, okay. So the most important position to draft right now, I would say, is offensive tackle, and the reason is the money that offensive tackles make in today's NFL is ridiculous. We're talking Jack Conklin, who's like okay in pass protection, which is, for an offensive tackle to be okay in pass protection, to be considered a top option, kind of blows my mind. And with the options available in the draft coming up in a few weeks, you have to take a guy like I don't know, Andrew Thomas or Mekhi Becton. You know what I mean? Offensive tackle, we're talking Conklin might be in the range to get 19 to 20 million per season, and he's okay in pass protection.
Yeah, that's too much.
That's too much. And just to build off of that, the salary cap's going to increase in the next few years. So if you get a guy on a cheap deal right now, especially out of the draft, you have a position of absolute importance and significance locked up on a really cheap deal without having to invest $20 million per season. We have $80 million. I'm not trying to give up a quarter of that right now for a right tackle. You know what I mean? So let's. I would rather plug Nick Gates in there. He looked pretty good in a smaller sample size. I'd rather just plug him in there. But what do you guys think? Edge rusher, OT, LB, quarterbacks or wide receivers? What do you think is for the Giants specifically? Where are they looking?
I'll let Anthony go first. Go ahead.
I'll say, I know I just got my gears really greasy over Isaiah Simmons, but I definitely say that linebacker is not nearly as important as as edge rusher, cornerback, or offensive tackle. I think offensive tackle, it's really hard to hit on a good offensive tackle at any point in the draft. They're just so rare to find. And so that kind of makes it scary to take one at number 4, because there's a good chance it could bust, especially when there's all these similar talent level offensive tackles. You don't know which one's actually going to end up being the best. And I mean, I think edge rusher is the most important because when you have that pass rush, you have just a dominant edge rusher off the edge, like Chase Young. I think if Chase Young is there and Isaiah Simmons is there, 10 out of 10 times you got to go Chase Young. You just always take the edge rusher. They're the difference maker. They can wreck a game completely, getting sacks. And I mean, Giants fans should know that well. We've been spoiled with great pass rushers over the years. Justin Tuck, JPP, OC, Lawrence Taylor, if you want to go that far back, Michael Strahan. So I think we should all know better than anybody that a pass rusher is more important than anything. And then I'd say then you go offensive tackle, then corner, and then linebacker, then wide receiver. We really don't necessarily need to draft a wide receiver right now, not in the first round at least.
Chase Claypool.
Hey, was this question? Is this question for the Giants in particular, or is it like if you're just starting a team, what positions would you draft first?
Yeah,
like,
that's a good question.
I'm pretty sure it's Giants particular.
Yeah, for them, I would go with the offensive tackle for sure. Yeah.
Well, it's a two-part question. He also says when the Giants draft, if they have players with same grade at the above positions, which one should they draft? So I guess, well, I mean, it's kind of similar to what happened last year because Dave Gettleman, he had the same grade on Josh Allen and Daniel Jones, and he said quarterback is more important, so we're going to take the quarterback. And that's the right move. If you have the same grade, you go by the more important position. But I think in this case, say theoretically you have the same grade on Isaiah Simmons and Chase Young, you go Chase Young because I think edge rusher is more important.
Especially monetarily. I agree 100%. Okay, so I like the answer to that question, Andrew. Thank you for the question. The next one is, what is the name of your cat? This actually wasn't entirely a question, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Actually, I want to show you. So in the meantime, you guys can, grease your gears over Isaiah Simmons or something. I'm going to go grab this guy. Hold up.
He's grabbing a cat. Is that right?
Yeah, he's about to go grab his cat.
What was I about to say? I really forgot what I was about to say before. Oh, so let me ask you. If it was between Isaiah Simmons and who's your favorite tackle from this draft?
I really haven't done enough research into the tackles yet, but I think Tristan Wirfs is just such a hell of an athlete. I'd probably say him because I know he's a really good pass blocker and he's super athletic. So I'll probably say him, but I should probably do a little more research before I give an official answer.
All right, fair enough.
Guys, I'm here. Okay, hold up. I'm coming. This is my cat.
You would be a cat guy, Alex. Of course you are.
I am, dude. My mom had like 15 cats. You see? Wow. You see him? Oh. His name is Dave Gettleman.
Yeah, right.
No.
Look at him. He kind of looks. Look at it. He kind of looks like a Dave.
No, I don't think so.
Do you see? Mr. Gettleman. That's why he's such a dick. So that's my cat. His name's actually Sachi after my favorite sushi restaurant. However, someone made a really good pun before saying his name should have been Eli Meowning.
Oh, I like that. Hey, do you think Dave Gettleman calls them catabacks? Like he says quarterbacks, he's calling them catabacks.
Oh my god, bro! I think I'm gonna hang up.
That's exactly what came to mind.
He's crazy because I was looking for him like for a few seconds and he was just sitting right next to me the whole time. I walked back over. I'm like, where the hell is this guy? Dave Gettleman. He always pops up out of nowhere. Every time he even meows in like a boss, he's like meow. Meow. No, seriously. He's kind of he's actually kind of an asshole. He's only 6 months old, but he like does the most annoying shit. Like I'll have my AirPods on the table, and I'll just walk up and freaking just swipe them off the table. No respect. Like, do you guys have any pets?
Yeah, I have a dog. I'm a dog guy. I really, really don't like cats.
You kind of look like you don't like cats, bro.
I hate them. Honestly, I've got so many bad memories with cats. I hate them.
Really? Because I have a really bad memory with a dog, and believe it or not, like, so before this occurred, I wasn't mad at dogs. I had no problem with dogs, but of all dogs for this to happen with, it was a golden retriever, which is like the nicest breed of dogs. So I was in a swimming pool one time at my friend's house. I was like probably like 8 years old. And the dog was like swimming in the pool with us. And, he would always go through in the stairs. And I was the only one in the pool at the time. And I was in the middle of the pool, just like treading water, hanging out with my goggles on. I like barely could swim. And this dog, I look over to my right and I just watch this dog leap off the side of the pool and onto my head. And he just starts beating me down in the middle of the pool. This like golden retriever. And all my friends are like running away. They're not even in the pool, but they're running away. Like they're sprinting. away from the pool. And I'm like, you're not even in the pool. Like you're not close to danger. My mom and my best friend's mom were laughing at me, thinking they were just playing with me. Meanwhile, I'm drowning, like straight up drowning and screaming. So, as smart as I am, I start to swim down under the water with my goggles like all over my face. So finally I get to the side and I look up and I turn around and this golden retriever is like, all I hear in the back of my head is like, is the Jaws music. Because I saw Jaws right before I went on a cruise ship and I hear da, 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 and this dog is like running after me with like wide eyes. I'm like bleeding from my back. So that's why I don't like dogs. And especially because it was a golden retriever, I never really got over it. That's why I have cats, but he's equally as a dick. He'll just run up to me and just smack me in the face.
That's crazy. I can't believe that happened. That's true story. No lie.
I swear to God. How could I make that up? Like, that's so intricate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's my dog. I got a picture of him. He's downstairs.
What's his
little
name?
Bijan.
Like
His name, a Tina. No, I'll say he does look a little funny in that picture because he needs a haircut really badly. But his name is Teddy. So he looked like a little teddy bear when we got him when he was a baby. So his name is Teddy. He's like my best friend.
I always love to hear like what people's dog and cat's names are. Like one of my cousins just named. Given my cousin's like 5 years old, so like take this with a grain of salt. They named their like white pug. I think it's Mott's after mozzarella. It's like mozzarella matzo ball is the full name of this dog.
Oh wow.
I know.
That's different.
Mozzarella matzo ball. That's different. I know. I don't really associate with that side of the family, so I'm not gonna claim any responsibility for the name of their animals. But I'm so sorry to anyone listening for us going on this tangent. I would love to hear what your cat or dog name is below, and especially if you have any cool like Giants related pet names, because I know like a bunch of people name their pets Odell, and now it's like kind of looking like a bad idea to name your pet after a Giants player or really any Jet player in general, because like once they leave, now you're stuck with Odell. Now you're stuck with Odell, and like now everyone just remembers Odell like smoking blunts and like doing cocaine with like girls in Paris. Like that's how I remember Odell now, like smacking like kicking nets and stuff. So
yeah.
Well, my buddy Mike has an English bulldog named Barkley.
Okay, well, that's like, but that's punny though, because his name is.
I know.
Barkley.
I know. It's perfect, right?
I like it.
I get that. Mike, do you have any pets? I feel like you have like a goldfish or something.
No, I have a dog, Wheaton Terrier named Kelsey. She's a girl. She's
really
12 years old now, I think. She's been around for a while. Yeah.
Man,
I don't have any crazy stories.
Yeah, my dog is 13.
You're 13?
Yeah.
I have a cat that's like 15.
Really?
Wow.
It's fat as hell. Well, I swear. You guys ever see like a Roomba? It's like clean the floors. It's like little circle things that like move around the floors and clean the floors. I'm talking about. This cat is so fat that like the bottom of his hair on his belly, like he just runs around and it just sweeps the floor as he runs. Back to the Giant stuff because I'm getting way off topic now. Next question from Mike Postino. Assume the Giants have properly fixed the OL. What type of offensive scheme do you see for them? Are they going to be more involved in the run or the pass? How do you use DJ, Saquon, Engram, Shepard, Tate, Slade, and Kaden Smith? For the sake of conversation, assume we didn't pick up any other offensive weapons. So, in my opinion, if the offensive line is fixed, which at this point seems like impossible because we've been dealing with this for freaking a decade now, they have to be favoring the run game. They have Saquon Barkley, number 2 pick in 2018. We just argued about this the other week. You got to be involved with the run game. Heavy 12 personnel. Make sure he gets open. I'm thinking running it outside of the tackles at this point. I don't really like the entire idea of running him up the gut anymore. He doesn't have that elusive ability. He's more of a guy that can bounce it outside, break tackles on the run to the boundary. That's how I like him. But do you guys think the same thing, Mike? What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. They better be a run first team because you guys know I like to complain about taking a running back second overall, and now it's done already. You might as well use them as much as you can. And if you have an improved offensive line, which is what we hope for, and especially if they use a 4th overall pick on it, they should have a better offensive line. Then you definitely use Saquon Barkley, try to give him 20 to 25 touches per game through the air or on the ground. And if you're in a neutral game script or if you're winning, then of course I want to run the ball as much as possible. If they're losing, then of course you have to change that up. But if they run the ball efficiently, that opens up a lot more for play action, Daniel Jones, and you get all these receivers involved. You can hit Darius Slayton downfield here and there, and it would be a perfect mesh in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the Giants, if they do have a perfectly built offensive line, they're going to rely on the run game. I think even if they have the worst offensive line, that's what they're going to do. That seems to be their mantra. They want to be a run-first team and just pound Saquon Barkley so that his career only lasts 5 years, which is obviously the problem with taking him at number 2. But anyway, I think really what they should do, I mean, if they do have like an elite offensive line, it's properly fixed the way they want it, they should be a pass-first team. You should be able to stand back there for 5 seconds with Daniel Jones, let him survey the field. I mean, you could do so much with your passing game when you've got an amazing offensive line, and then you can mix in the run, a lot of play action. I mean, I don't know, but I'm not an NFL coach, so who am I to say? But I think Daniel Jones standing back there for 6 seconds, that sounds pretty good to me.
That does sound pretty good, and I think we should just meet in the middle and say they should just be both.
Yeah.
You know, like with a good offensive line, look at the Cowboys. They had the #1 passing attack in the NFL last year, but they also ran the ball hella well. So that's something to consider. You know, we have Saquon Barkley run the ball, but also utilize play action. You know, take shots downfield. They have to be unpredictable, and that's what I kind of liked about KC's offense. You know, they were very unpredictable. They'd launch. You know, we'd have Patrick Mahomes launching 80-yard passes to Tyreek Hill downfield, but then they'd be running the ball like hell. You know, with Damian Williams. And whoever else they had at running back, they had like high schoolers playing running back and still succeeding. So, you know, that's what you get when you have a good offensive line, though. You can maximize players to the most of their ability because it gives your quarterback time, it gives your running back more holes to utilize. And they're going to be using more 12 personnel because last year with all the injuries to the tight ends, they were using 11 personnel a lot. You know, I want those 2 tight ends there. I want them to be you know, diverse in the passing game and be able to run block well. Those are very important things to me. But for the last question of the day, because we're getting, you know, deep into the podcast here, we'll go with Godzilla Kong. I love these people's Twitter names, like Godzilla Kong. I love it. Anyway, would you give up next year's first rounder to trade back into the top of this year's in order to get Simmons and an offensive tackle? How much more would you be willing to give up? Personally, I'm not giving up a first round pick. That's not how you build a team. Unless you're getting a quarterback. That's the only way, unless you're going to the #1 overall pick to get the pretty much guaranteed quarterback. You're not risking that much draft capital, in my opinion. You're giving up a second round. Ideally, the Giants can trade back, accumulate another second round pick, pair them, move up, get an offensive tackle. Even if it's the last of the best, it's still one of the best. You know what I mean? There's a lot of offensive tackles in this draft that look fantastic. Josh Jones still is up there. He's probably a late first rounder, early second rounder, an option. I also really like Zach Bond, like not even an offensive tackle. Zach Bond, linebacker out of Wisconsin, he had 12.5 sacks last year as a linebacker. Pairing him with a guy like Ryan Connolly or Corey Littleton, you know, if they don't get Simmons, really good options. But what do you think, Anthony? First round, are you giving up a first round pick to trade back in to get an offensive tackle?
I'm not, but I would give up a second round pick, an additional second round pick. I think, you know, an offensive tackle, if you're going for one of the top tier guys versus one of those second tier guys, it's a pretty huge difference. And so I definitely think it's worth giving up a lot for, but a first round pick, that's too much because I don't expect us to be a very good team next year. I think we're going to miss the playoffs again, but I think we're going to get better. But still, you never know. It could be another top 10 pick because you never know what's going to happen. And you really don't want to give that up because if you have a chance to get the best offensive tackle in the draft next year, but instead somebody else has your draft pick, then you're going to be, you know, punching the wall and kicking and screaming, and I will be because it'll be really frustrating. So don't give up any future first-round picks unless you're going for a quarterback. I agree with you, Alex.
I am very much on the fence about this. I mean, you guys were a hard no, but I'm sitting here thinking if I can have Isaiah Simmons and Andrew Thomas in the same draft, then my team probably gets a lot better. And hopefully it's not a high first-round pick for the next year, maybe in the middle of the draft, but you guys are probably right. I mean, logically, I would say probably not, but the idea of having Isaiah Simmons and my favorite offensive tackle from this year's class would be amazing. But then again, you don't trade first-round picks unless it's for a quarterback, as you said. So I guess in the end, I would say no, but I was thinking hard about it.
Like, okay, so think about from this perspective, really, the negatives of trading a first-round pick are, let's say you pair a first and a second-round pick. And you move up into like the middle of the first round to get an offensive tackle like Andrew Thomas. The idea isn't a bad thought, right? Because you're essentially trading a first round pick from next year to get a first round value this year. So if you think you can turn the team around rather quickly in the next 2 years or so, it's totally worth it. You're really only giving up the second round pick. But then again, second round pick can be extremely valuable. You know, we got Landon Collins there a few years ago. And
Dalvin
Tomlinson. You see guys like Zach Bond up there. There's some people can slip to the second round, and you don't want to be, missing out on a top wide receiver that just somehow slips. Like, you never really know. And that's kind of the idea. Like, it makes sense to do that if you can get a really good player, especially with the depth they have in this year for the offensive tackles. You don't see this very often. So it's a really good thought, Godzilla Kong. I can't get over that. But at this point, I don't think the Giants can afford to give up that much capital in a rebuild, especially with new coaching staff and management coming in. But that's it for Fireside Giants episode today. Do you guys have any last thoughts? Start with Anthony.
I just tried to go find Godzilla Kong on Twitter. I gotta follow him because that name is super awesome. So if you could send that to me, I wasn't able to find him, so send me that, Alex. I wanna follow him, and I think this podcast has been a ton of fun. I'm looking forward to next week, and go Giants.
Oh, is it my turn to talk?
Yeah, it's your turn.
Mike.
All right. So, sorry about getting off topic for the 5 minutes or whatever it was, but we wanted to talk about pets and whatnot. So, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys next week. I'm sure Alex will do the whole, closing out thing, so you can get ahead with that.
Wow. Thank you so much for
You're welcome.
All right, guys. I'm going to do it. Thank you for listening to Fireside Giants, and make sure to follow us on Twitter. If you did not see my cat because you were listening, please tune into YouTube and let me know if you think he looks like Dave Gettleman. He kind of does, even if Mike doesn't think he does. But we're going to have tons more content coming. Smash that review button and that like button on YouTube, and please subscribe. We want to hear more from you guys. Advice, feedback, everything. This makes us better and more enjoyable for you. And keep reading our articles. We have a lot of great content coming out from everybody on the beat. So we'll talk to you guys next week, and thanks for tuning in.